Hello, it is I, Bernie Sanders, and I want to thank all my supporters for supporting me in Iowa as we have officially won the Iowa caucus. It may have taken a few days, but we did it. We now know that our message is spreading far. Actually, Bernie, it seems that I actually won the Iowa caucus. I mean, it says here that I won more delegates than you. What? What are you talking about, Mayor Pete Buttigieg? I'm pretty sure that I won the popular vote. Yes, Bernie, you did, but apparently I won more delegates. So, I mean, I'm going to make a campaign speech that I won it. So, yeah, you can go ahead and pack your bags. Now, wait a minute, guys. I think I won the Iowa caucus because as a Native American, I should have won this caucus. I should have won this one. Well, actually, all three of you are wrong, and I won it. First of all, I won it because Barack Obama won it in 2012, and now I won it in 2020. So I think that I won, and I should get the most delegates. Okay, this is absolutely ridiculous. We can't all claim that we won at the same time. Well, I mean, sure we can. Why not? Yeah, Bernie, what's the problem with you? Yeah, exactly, Bernie. You socialist? What? I think that I won. I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna win this whole thing. Shut up, Joe. You're too old for this anyway. Okay, how about we just look at the polls and find out? Here, turn on CNN. This is CNN. Hello, welcome to CNN. I'm Wolf Blitzer. And it has been reported that there have been 0 polls that have come in so far, and every single candidate has 0%. But Donald Trump has won the Iowa caucus by 97% of the vote. Well then, I guess Donald Trump is the big winner. Yes, I am. I am the big winner of this entire week, to be exact. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Kyle Dockery with the Dockery Docket, and we are here. It is our very 13th episode of the Dockery Docket, and I am very, very excited to be here because, you know, we are getting so much support now. I've started putting more stuff on Instagram, starting to make more Photoshop things, and I'm getting people on Instagram, Twitter, and other places to start liking and reposting our content. I want to thank everyone who has done that. Conservative Fisherman and No Liberals Allowed. They both decided to repost my video on social media, on their Instagram page. And also make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. I really want to make sure that we get a lot of likes because there's a lot of people now listening to our show and there's a lot of people who are giving it dislikes. So please make sure you hit that like button. So we are going to dive in to this news week because it was a absolute crazy week. Let me tell you. I was on the edge of my seat all week because I knew that it was going to be crazy. I told you guys last week that we had a lot of stuff going on and it was very, very interesting what was going to happen this week. So we start with Monday, and I left you guys a little bit on a teaser because usually what happens during a Iowa caucus or in an election, usually by the end of that night, there's a clear idea of who wins. But for the Iowa caucus with the Democrats, nobody knew who won. Nobody knew who won, and it was very, very confusing. There was something to do with an app that completely failed right in the middle of the Iowa caucus. So people who were running the caucus had to call in their votes to the DNC, and it was just a complete and utter mess. So this went on all night long. They released some poll data, and it said, okay, well, Pete Buttigieg is winning. And then instantly they took it back and said, oh, we have to look over this. We need to look over this. And then they didn't release any more material for a long time. And so this got a lot of people thinking, maybe this is rigged. Maybe there's something going on here with the anti-Bernie. And that's exactly what people went to. Instantly, the Bernie supporters were like, this is horrible. This is rigged. We know that the party establishment wants Joe Biden, and we're angry. We're ticked off about this. This went on for this whole week, this whole Iowa caucus thing. Who won Iowa? Who won Iowa? Now, the important thing about the Iowa caucus is that whoever wins the Iowa caucus is more than likely going to get a little bit of a bump in the polls. So if Bernie Sanders won it, he might take over Joe Biden's spot as the frontrunner. So instantly, before any of the votes were cast out into the world, all these Democrats got up on stage and were like, "Thank you, everyone. We won Iowa." And this especially happened with Pete Buttigieg, who made this whole big campaign speech about how they won Iowa and how happy they are that they won Iowa, and he didn't even win yet. Like, there was no polls that said, "Okay, Pete Buttigieg, you won." He just said that he won, and this caused a lot of confusion. But in the end, we're going to be looking all the way towards this Friday. So it took a whole week for the Democrats to get it, and every single day there was just a little bit more of the votes coming in. So it was like 67, and then it was 98, and then it was another percentage, and it was absolutely hilarious. But this completely made the Democratic Party look bad, because they say that they can run your health care, but they can't even run a simple election. Apparently, what happened was an app broke and it malfunctioned. I believe I already said this at the beginning, but it malfunctioned. And then people started blaming the Russians. People started blaming Donald Trump and his supporters. And it was all a mess. The Democrats had 3 years to get this all figured out, and they dropped the ball on it, just like they did the impeachment. But we will talk about that later. So as of right now, Pete Buttigieg is winning the Democratic primary with 12 delegates. Bernie has 11, and Warren has 8, I believe. So, I mean, it's just the first round, and New Hampshire is going to be very interesting. I think whoever wins New Hampshire will probably get a very big bump. A lot of people are saying that it's going to be Bernie, but Pete Buttigieg also got a bump. So we will see what happens. That might be the very next episode of the Dockery Docket. So now we move on to Tuesday, which was another terrible day for the Democrats, as Donald Trump gave his State of the Union address. Now, this was a fantastic State of the Union address. To me, Trump seemed very unifying. He seemed very bold. He was there and he was talking about how black unemployment is at an all-time low, female unemployment is at an all-time low, and multiple other things. He started out talking about the good stuff, and then right at the end, he just went on the attack. He went on the attack of sanctuary cities like California and how terrible that their government has been running that city. And he went on the attack about abortion and about immigration and stuff like that. And it was very cool because I love the picture. There's a picture of President Trump standing right in the middle, because that's where he stands during the State of the Union speech. And one side is the Republicans, and they're standing up and they're clapping like crazy. And on the other side, you got the Democrats, who are completely stone-faced. And, I mean, even on the simplest things like, oh, hooray, we have low unemployment, low black unemployment. The Democrats don't stand, because apparently the unemployment is low because people are working multiple jobs, which I don't think is actually true. And so Donald Trump is a great showman. I mean, he was on a television show, so he knows how to do this. So most presidents, since Reagan, I believe, have had people in their gallery. So Donald Trump had a few great people up there. He had an African-American fighter pilot from World War II. I believe he was 101 years old, which was super cool. And his grandson wanted to be a part of Space Force, which was super cool. There was also a little girl there who was in public schools that were doing absolutely terrible for her, and she wanted to go to a different school. So Donald Trump used her to say that we need to have school choice. And also there was a mother with her child. The child survived being born at 21 weeks, which Democrats say is the time that you can kill a baby. And Donald Trump used this to say, hey, look, every life is important. Every life is precious. And the Democrats did not like that very much, because Donald Trump was like, we are going to end late-term abortion. And, the Republicans clapped. Democrats, not so much. But one of the best moments was a military wife and her kids, and Donald Trump, thanked them for their service and all this stuff, and that they hoped that her husband would come home soon. But Donald Trump surprised them, and the soldier came down the steps, and it was just absolutely a beautiful moment. Donald Trump used his gallery so well. One of Donald Trump's more controversial picks to put in his gallery was conservative radio host Rush Limbaugh, who was just diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Now, when he was announced, when he was talked about, the Democrats didn't stand because apparently, Rush Limbaugh is a white supremacist. Rush Limbaugh is a racist. Rush Limbaugh is a terrible, terrible person. But anyway, Melania Trump gave him the Medal of Freedom, which was a very cool moment. It was just awesome and incredible. And as a podcaster myself, and as being on the radio myself, I hope that one day I could be like Rush Limbaugh. So there were plenty Democrats who skipped this event, like AOC, Maxine Waters, while other Democrats, including other members of the squad, sat on their phones. I don't know if they were live tweeting during the event, but they were there. You could see them, they were giggling with each other. They were talking to each other the entire time, being extremely rude. But they decided to leave the speech when Donald Trump mentioned Brett Kavanaugh, which is really interesting because these two, Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, saw Brett Kavanaugh come in and weren't triggered by him. But once Donald Trump said the name Brett Kavanaugh, they got triggered and left. Tim Ryan also left the State of the Union because he said that Donald Trump was full of lies, whatever that means. And so he left, and I believe other people left. But there were certain people who couldn't leave because they were the Speaker of the House, and that was Nancy Pelosi. Now listen, I bet Nancy Pelosi would have rather gotten her dentures ripped out on live TV than been at that State of the Union address. She looks so uncomfortable up there, and you can just tell that she did not want to be there at all. So this was the start of something that I like to call the Trump and Nancy Pelosi tit for tat. We're going to start out by talking about what usually happens during a State of the Union address. So usually what happens during a State of the Union address is the Sergeant at Arms will say, Madam Speaker, the President of the United States. And then Donald Trump enters out. He shakes hands with all of his senators, like the Republicans are like reaching for him and the Democrats are sort of just sitting there stone-faced because they don't like him that much. And so President Trump comes down and he comes to the podium, which has 2 folders on it. Now, these 2 folders contain the speech that Donald Trump is going to give. So he gives one to Mike Pence, and he gives the other one to the Speaker of the House. Now, usually what happens after this is they usually shake hands. So Trump shakes hands with Nancy Pelosi, Trump shakes hands with Mike Pence, and then he goes on to do his speech. But that didn't happen, as Donald Trump gave Nancy Pelosi her speech, and instantly Donald Trump turned around. Now, there are reports that said that Donald Trump didn't see her hand, but I can almost guarantee that he did that to be petty with Nancy Pelosi. I mean, she's trying to impeach him, and I wouldn't shake her hand. If her entire goal is to get rid of me, I wouldn't shake her hand at all. But the thing is that he never shook Mike Pence's hand either, so it's interesting because he just sort of gave the folders away and then turned straight around. It's a big old conspiracy if he didn't mean to shake her hand or if he did. But that was strike one in this whole tit for tat back and forth between Trump and Nancy Pelosi. So after all of this transpired, the Speaker of the House, who is in control of the chamber, will get everyone settled down, and they will usually say, "Members of Congress, it is my high honor and privilege and distinct honor to present to you the President of the United States." This has been said for a very long time during the State of the Union, so it would make sense that Nancy Pelosi would say this. But what she said was, "Members of Congress, the President of the United States." Now, this isn't really a big deal, but you can tell that this was a dig at Donald Trump because, as we know, Nancy Pelosi does not like the president. So this was strike 2 in this whole Trump versus Nancy Pelosi fiasco. And Donald Trump might not have taken it as an insult. He might have just been like, okay, well, whatever. So now during the address, Nancy Pelosi looks very uncomfortable. I don't know if her dentures were in wrong or her hair wasn't right or something, but she looks so distraught the entire time. So during this whole entire State of the Union address, she's looking over at her party and she's watching. She's watching if anyone has any outbursts, if anyone has anything that they were going to say, and if they do, she will attack them. Basically, she'll write down their name and attack them. And this actually did happen when somebody said something on her side and she was pointing her finger physically at someone. That was an interesting thing, and you can tell that Nancy Pelosi has such a tight grip on her party. Her grip is so strong on the party, and they're scared of her. The Democrats are scared of her. And also, along with that, whenever she stood to clap for something, the Democrats would stand and clap for something. She fidgeted around with the papers a lot of the time. She was putting them in a pile, tapping them on the desk and then, reading through them. I think she read Trump's entire speech in whole. She said that she was trying to find the wrongs in it. She was trying to find things that weren't true in it and stuff like that, which, there might have been over-exaggerations by Trump. That's just how Donald Trump works. But most of the things that he said were true. And so I feel like you have to watch it just to get Nancy Pelosi's reactions. Like when Donald Trump, I mentioned this before, when he was talking about California and sanctuary cities, her face was just priceless. She was like, are you attacking me? Are you attacking Democrats? Are you attacking our party? And Donald Trump is just so good at this. But during this entire State of the Union address, Nancy Pelosi was plotting for something. Nancy Pelosi was plotting for something huge to distract the country from Donald Trump and to put focus onto her. And this is when strike 3 happened in this Trump versus Nancy Pelosi fiasco. So after the speech was over, Nancy Pelosi ripped up Donald Trump's speech. When I saw this happen, I was floored. My dad was like, Kyle, look what she's doing. Look what she's doing with this speech. Look it. And there she is, ripping it straight in half, putting it to the side, ripping it straight in half. And she didn't look happy doing this. She looked angry. She looked mad, like she was going to bite off Donald Trump's head. Luckily, Trump didn't see her do this because he would have been very, very upset about this. And it's also interesting, too, because there were pictures released that Nancy Pelosi pre-ripped the papers before she actually did her little stunt. And that just cracked me up because Nancy Pelosi is almost 80 years old. And so she was probably very, very, very nervous that if she started ripping and it was stronger paper than she thought, that she wouldn't be able to rip it. And then she looked like an idiot. You know those papers that are very, very thick? That's what she was probably nervous about. So she had to make sure that she had a little peel here sign. You know those little ketchup packets that have the tear here on the side? She made her own of that. So I understand that this speech that she ripped up was just paper, but still, it is this whole idea that Nancy Pelosi saying that I was raised as a Catholic. I have a heart full of love. I pray for the president every day. Her actions speak louder than words. Her facial expressions speak louder than words. You can tell very easily that she does not like the president of the United States. We can all tell that. It is obvious. It is extremely obvious that she does not like Donald Trump at all, and she wants to get him out of office as soon as possible. And this is what we saw during the State of the Union address, from her scowls, from her ripping up the papers, and from her disrespecting Trump by not saying it is my high honor to introduce to you the President of the United States. So now we move on to Wednesday, which was a very, very big day because this was the final day of the impeachment trial. This was the very last day, and it was a very, very exciting day because Donald Trump, as we all knew, was going to be acquitted in the House of Representatives. Now, I said last week that I thought some Democrats would come over to the Republican side and vote with the Republican side to acquit Donald Trump, but unfortunately that didn't happen. But there was a Republican that jumped over to the Democratic side to convict Donald Trump of these crimes, and that was Mitt Romney. Now, the problem with Mitt Romney and this whole idea that he's a traitor, he's a backstabber, he's a Democratic spy, is that this was only one vote. And this vote wasn't going to lead to the president being kicked out of office. Mitt Romney is his own person. Mitt Romney is his own man, and he can make his own decisions. Do I agree with Mitt Romney's decision to vote guilty on the first article of impeachment, which was abuse of power? No. But do I also believe that Mitt Romney is his own person and he can make his own decisions? Yes, I do. So I don't necessarily like this idea that Mitt Romney is a terrible person. I mean, it is interesting because there was a lot of things that happened to start this. You know, he lost in 2012 to Barack Obama. Donald Trump endorsed him in 2012. Then in 2016, Donald Trump was going on to win the nomination, and Mitt Romney said that Donald Trump wasn't likely to be a good president. So it just seems like there's two sides of the story. Either Mitt Romney is super duper bitter about those ideas, or he has his own convictions, and that led him to vote this way. But like I said, it doesn't matter. Every single headline was coming out and saying, Mitt Romney did this, Mitt Romney did that, Mitt Romney did this. And it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, Donald Trump was acquitted by the Senate. And that's all that matters. On both charges, mostly it was party lines, except for Mitt Romney. And, you know, instantly the Democrats were like, this is a sham. This is a terrible thing. How dare they? But it's over. And that is the important thing, is that finally we can move on with the rest of our lives, because this whole impeachment thing was a sham from the beginning. And we know that. And we've talked about it since the very beginning, that it was a complete and utter sham run by the Democrats to make Donald Trump look bad. And these articles failed to pass, and it just seems like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. And I believe that there was a weight that was lifted off of Donald Trump's shoulders as well, as Donald Trump had a great day on Thursday. He was going after people. He was attacking the media, and he was attacking Nancy Pelosi. He was attacking Adam Schiff. He was at a prayer breakfast in the morning, and he had a bunch of newspapers from multiple different news organizations saying Trump acquitted on it, and he was sort of parading them around like the Harry Truman. I mean, that's what he was doing. And it was funny because there was, at one point, he was holding up a newspaper and he would like look at it and he'd be like, oh, like he was shocked by it. He also, I believe, is going to keep the Washington Post article because he said that that was the only good news that they ever said about him. But I do think that Donald Trump is very much relieved by this. He's very much like, let's start leading the country again. Let's move past this. Let's keep going and going and going. As this whole Ukrainian stuff is over, I still believe that the Democrats aren't done yet. This whole thing with Ukraine just means that the Democrats are going to be looking at Donald Trump with a finer magnifying glass. And so anything that comes up, anything that Donald Trump does, more than likely the Democrats will call him out for it. They're going to go after his taxes. They're going to go after his love life. They're going to go after his kids. They're going to go after anyone that they can to make him look terrible. And we have to be careful about that. We have to be careful to shift through the lies and the deceit that the Democrats are doing, because we can tell that they hate this president. They hate Donald Trump so much, and they're going to do whatever they can to get him out of office. So it doesn't matter what Mitt Romney does. It doesn't matter what other Republicans do. What matters is that Trump is acquitted, and he made the Democrats look absolutely silly this week. And I mean, I'm hoping that there will be more weeks like this where I have to try and cram in 4 days of information all into 30-minute episodes. But at the same time, I'm exhausted because it was an absolute crazy political week. I'm very excited to see what's next in the Trump presidency after this acquittal, to see what he's going to do to make sure that he doesn't fall for maybe the same tricks again. Maybe he'll try to walk lightly around different things. You know, he might ask people, hey, can I hold up this aid to this country? You know, try and be more clear about what he wants. But after this week, I believe now more than ever before that Donald Trump will win the 2020 presidential nomination. Democrats can't run their own caucus. The Democrats hate Donald Trump and they will do anything that they can to get him out. And in the end, Donald Trump is unbeatable. And if you fire a shot at him, more than likely he will deflect it off of him and it will hit you right back. So now that we're done with that, we can do a Babylon Bee article of the week, which this one is called Pelosi Suffers Multiple Strains, Fractures While Ripping Up Trump's Speech. It says, well, it's shaping up to be a bad week for Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi. The Democratic primaries are in chaos. Trump delivered a positive, high-energy State of the Union address. The economy is good, and Trump was just acquitted of the articles of impeachment. But Nancy Pelosi made it even worse on herself by tearing up Trump's State of the Union address in front of the whole nation. She ended up overexerting herself, and 54 different bones in her hand and wrist immediately snapped during the ripping. 14 different muscles were also strained. She fell to the ground in pain, nearly getting trampled by Mike Pence and President Trump, who pretended not to see her. Luckily, she had one of those buttons old people hang around their necks, and she was able to press it and call for help. I trained for weeks to prepare for ripping up those few pages, but I forgot to stretch before the big event, she told the doctor sheepishly. I even pre-ripped the pages so they'd be easier to tear up, but it wasn't enough. I shouldn't have skipped arm day at the water aerobics class last week. Oh boy, am I going to look silly. But I'll just blame it all on Trump somehow. During the doctor's scans, they also discovered that she had contracted Trump derangement syndrome. There is no known cure. So, I want to thank you all for listening and also watching. And until next week, like my mom always says, be good, be kind, be loving. Goodbye.